بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Safina Society podcast. How are you guys doing?
Alhamdulillah.
So this is our first virtual podcast. So we're doing it online. So you guys might hear the differences in audio here. I think the topic that we're going to talk about today is really starting off on what it's like to be in a more virtual sort of world. And I think the first thing I've noticed is it's hard to meet up with people now. I mean, it's only been like 4 or 5 days and I feel like I have cabin fever already.
Well, I'll begin with that the idea of being on the computer all day. For me, it hasn't been an issue. I think for a lot of adults it's not an issue, but for some kids that it's new to, it's not nice to see someone who's never been on the computer all day to always being on the computer all day. It's something that is not nice to see. But for me, I think I guess it's been a little bit easier. If it's prolonged, then I think the lack of physical meeting is not going to be good for personal social reasons. But it's been fine. A lot of people relying upon a technology that we've already been using, and I think homeschoolers are already ahead of the curve too because they've already been doing this stuff. So we're all homeschoolers now. I guess if you're, none of you are, but there's something a lot of listeners probably dealing with right now.
I think the biggest benefit, and I'm going to try to stay as positive as I can since I am fairly negative about this whole situation, but I think the biggest positive I've seen is this has sort of been a catalyst to make a lot of things go remote. I think the podcast is a great example. I mean, we've been trying to do this for a number of months, almost like years at this point. Never gone and done a virtual episode. So I think it's made a lot of things a little bit easier. I think even things like government forums and things like that, once this blows over, we might be living in a more virtual world. And I'm curious to see how we can turn this into a positive thing, right? I know people are very against being virtual all the time, but maybe there's some benefit in this, right? Maybe you cut down on commutes, you cut down on a lot of other things.
I spend a lot of time. You spend a lot more time with the people in your house if you have people in your house. I think it's a big problem though for people who are lonely, who are alone in the house. It's a big problem for people who maybe not even get along with the people that they live with, right? Or are limited with the people that they live with. So it's going to be a back and forth. It's going to be beneficial for taking down commute time and spending time with people that you live with, but it's negative for people who. What's that? It's negative for people who don't have. What is that feedback? You hear that feedback?
Still clicking?
No,
it was like an echo.
I think it's gone here.
All right, let me try that again. So it'll be a positive for people who commute, take out the commute time and all that and spend time with the people in your house. But it's a negative if you don't have anyone in your house. And a lot of people don't have people in their house. So they have to be taken into consideration. Not every Muslim household is some kind of big, happy family. And sometimes worse, you have people in your house that you can't stand, right? So virtual is really bad unless you have an excuse to lock yourself up in your room and say, I'm being virtual.
Yeah. And I think there's also, maybe we're getting too on the negative side of things here, but there's also a lot of people that can't work from home, right? Like just because of the nature of their job. So, obviously if you work in an office, if you work in an environment where you could just log in on a laptop and do your work from anywhere, that makes sense. But there's a lot of things that I think keep society going, a lot of jobs that can't be remote, like we wouldn't be able to be remote if our trash wasn't being picked up and stuff. So,
well, here's a question for you. In any office building, in any school, in anything, how many people are employed in non-content functions?
A lot.
I mean, I would say like a good 10% probably.
So your maintenance, your grounds crew, all that stuff.
And a lot of people also forget that just because people work in tech doesn't mean they all work, can work remotely. There's a lot of people who maintain cloud servers and maintain the infrastructure of all these things. I work for a large telecom agency, and I know if we have so many employees that go out there to fix people's internet and fix people's things. Like if they couldn't get out there, you wouldn't even have internet, right?
Mhm.
So it's
the blue collar
interesting
though.
to think about. It's all blue collar, right?
Well,
They're
so
the
like
ones who are going to suffer.
what I do, everything is person to person.
Mm.
There you go.
Mm,
I still
Yeah.
work in an environment and in a type of industry where you actually need a wet signature on a document for it to be valid.
Mm.
So
And
like, there's
are
no.
you in?
I've been. Today was my last day in the office, so as of tonight, I start working from home.
Skyping with people?
Yeah, we're using Zoom actually.
Oh, the whole world's using Zoom. I mean, I'm surprised this
Yeah.
website hasn't
Should have bought
crashed yet.
some.
Well,
Zoom
Zoom was always the best
chairs.
video platform for the last few years now. Just people weren't using it.
I mean, why
Zoom
didn't you
is
guys?
Chinese, right?
Don't even start. Listen, why didn't you guys say anything about you doing a virtual podcast a long time ago when we were
I think
commuting 5
I think
hours? Me and Alex,
we-
5 hours commute to South Jersey and getting passports and visas to
Wait,
go to South Jersey.
Yeah,
I
it was
think we
really wild, man.
suggested it. I
They
think
were
we
rough at the
suggested
border,
it. We
too.
just never explored it.
I've been suggesting it for years.
I think we all had concerns about audio quality if we
Yeah.
did it this way.
Well, that's why all the people like me and Sad needs to stop coughing. Are you sick? This is the third time you've coughed, man.
Bro, I don't even want you virtually around me.
Listen,
Yeah,
I don't,
exactly. It doesn't come through the screen.
listen. Well, I mean, there's a video that was going around the other day about the true reality of the internet, right? And
Yeah.
not to make fun of the sheikh or anything, but the theory was quite wild. And the theory was that it was, in fact, that the electricity is is the jinn. Jinn is electricity, and that it's jinn that is moving stuff from the servers to you, to your screen, and it's the world of jinn. So
This is a
basically,
This is a
What's that?
rehash. This is a rehash from one of the early Egyptian modernist Salafis.
really,
Yeah, I don't know if it was Al-Afghani or one of the other guys.
he said, what did he
It
say?
was like electrical impulses.
Yeah, so this sheikh said jinn are electrical impulses. And I mean, he looks like a very pious sheikh, but the theory is just a little bit out there. He says that they're electrical impulses, and by getting us the world online, the more time you spend online, he sucks your energy out, right? And you're feeding the world of jinn by being online. And that, in fact, through the cable wires and through the silicon chips are their homes, and their cable wires are their highways and pathways for travel, right? So, I mean,
Wouldn't that be the case for electricity overall?
that's a good question.
So and where did
I
they
have a
live
question.
before the silicon
Yeah.
chips?
Exactly. That's my same question. Like, are you saying that jinn didn't exist before the discovery of electricity?
Yeah, good question. And what happens when I am typing something about the Quran or something? Wouldn't they be against that? I mean, why would they go and retrieve
Well,
that?
I mean, if they're a Muslim jinn.
So he has them being on there too.
So Quran.com, Quran.com is run by Muslim jinn. Come on, man.
That's
Yeah.
that's in the conspiracy.
So well, he said furthermore that code is jinn languages.
Well, that might be true.
Yeah, that might be true.
So well, if you took on a theory like that, then maybe the virus might end up in the MP4, right?
That's
And
true.
then it might end up coming out of the speakers of the listeners, right? I mean, if we keep going down that route, but alhamdulillah, we're not. So next topic.
I think what's interesting too is this is only like the third or fourth day. Like I was saying, I have cabin fever. What really worries me and troubles me is how do we deal with this at a longer scale? And I know there's people at my work that are like, oh, we're going to be wrapped up in 2 weeks and be back to work. And I'm like, I don't know how to break it to them. Like, we're not getting back to work in 2 weeks. Like, I'll tell you that right now. And so how do we deal with a semi-permanent situation? Because this, I don't think it's going to get wrapped up for, 4 to 6 months. At least this virtual sort of world.
Well, does anyone have anything else to say before I put in my 2 cents?
Go ahead.
Well, I think you just create a new routine, right? I mean, this is not going to be anywhere near the hardship of jail, and they create a new routine. And I think the new routine should involve.
I mean, like you
I mean, if
started
we,
off just comparing it to jail.
I mean,
So,
just think about them. They create routines. They're like physically fit. Some of these guys, right? These guys look great, and they're eating trash.
They're well read.
They're well read. A lot of these guys do great. And I met a guy, subhanallah, at the homeless run the other day. He came in and he said, "Hey, you guys are Muslim?" And we said, "Yeah." And he said, and he "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," and he broke out with Abdul Basit, right? The exact copy of Abdul Basit. So I said, "Where did you learn that?" He said there was an inmate in the jail who would play a tape. He was the only Muslim. His his good behavior allowed them to give him a cassette tape, like one of those little cassettes with a tape player and the speaker on the side of the cassette tape. And he would play that, okay, and he would play the whole 45-minute side, and everyone would fall asleep to that. Eventually, the whole group of people in the jail were all listen and would fall asleep to that, right?
mashallah.
And he persisted, and he's only allowed one tape. So he kept playing the same tape, right? One day side A, one day side B. Okay, one night side A, one night side B. And until the guy memorized the side, right? He memorized it, and he was able to recite it. He didn't even know what he was reciting. He wasn't a Muslim. But he said, when that guy left, I couldn't sleep anymore. None of us could sleep anymore. So subhanAllah, that guy was bringing malaika into the jail by day in, day out, right? And so they were falling asleep to that and benefiting from that. So if we just think about them, they have routines, and we got a million times better our situation is. So it's about having a sleep cycle that makes sense. That's good. It's about getting physical exercise so that you can get tired, even if that means a long walk. Like my preferred physical exercise, believe it or not, is a really long walk. Okay. Whether or not it's outdoors or on a machine, it doesn't make a difference. To me, I really like to have a nice fast-paced walk, but a long one. Right? So that, the type of walk where you're actually sweaty and tired at the end of it, but you had
10 minutes.
but one that doesn't kill your knees over years. And if you do something more intensive, good for you. But then the other one is cleaning up, right? Cleaning up, because when you stay home all day, the place gets dirty, right? So getting clean, getting tired, having a wake up, a sleep cycle that's good. And then lastly,
changing your clothes,
like getting dressed in the morning. Moeen's dressed. I don't know. Did you go to work, Moeen? You said you work from home.
Yeah. So, I mean, I when I started my career, I worked almost exclusively from home. And I remember the first 4 months were just horrible. And then, like you were saying, in terms of a routine, there's just certain things I do. The one of the most important is getting dressed in the morning. I think that's extremely important. Whether you're working from home or not, I think it's extremely important to get dressed in the morning, because it puts you in a state of, I'm changing. I'm going from this, mode of waking up and having breakfast, and then now I'm actually going to work now, and that's helped a lot.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
changing your clothes is a big deal.
Yeah, and it's not just the top, right? Like you put some pants on, get ready, and I think that makes a huge deal.
No, I actually put my shoes on, believe it or not. Right? A lot of Muslims don't wear their shoes in the house, but I clean my shoes. So as long as it's not a carpeted area, I actually find that. Also, I mean, in the morning the floor is cold anyway, so I actually put everything on, and it changes everything. Changes your whole mindset about things.
I think one thing for people who can't work from home, it is definitely a different conversation. But one thing I found is, I know a lot of scholars and Muslims online are saying we should use this opportunity for khalwa and meditation and dhikr. Here's one thing that I have a question about. My day, it's not like I've actually gained any time in the day besides my commute of 1 hour or so, right? 1 hour, let's say an hour and a half or so of commute time. I still have to work the whole day, right? It's not like I now have this time of seclusion. If anything, now these people are pinging me at midnight asking me for stuff. because it's like, oh, you're home, you're just chilling anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's not like we have all of this extra time now. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel that we don't have so much. I don't have so much extra time, but at the same time, I don't have the same level of hassle and there's an annoying part of your day, and you come home and you're tired. Just that's eliminated, right? That's been eliminated.
One thing we don't have is we haven't had to hit the first weekend yet, but that's what I'm looking forward to. Right, a weekend of no parties, no dinners, no birthdays. I mean, I hate those things anyway, so this is like great for me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to go do all these things. I can actually sit and read a book.
Well, sometimes the weekends with all those amins and fatihas and nikah and all that. You're not even going to funerals if someone dies, right? So all that could make the weekend more tiring than the week. Right, and your cheeks are so tired because you have to smile to all these people, right? I come home and I don't want to talk, right? I don't want to smile. I don't want to talk because I've been smiling to people all day. But it's going to be nice. And I was thinking the other day, could you imagine if your sheikh told you, listen, no more sports, no more weddings, no more go and hang out with your friends, no more of any of this, right?
I'd do bay'ah immediately.
You would do.
Yeah. Alex sent that meme.
You'd be like, man, this is too strict. This is too much. I can't do this, right? But here we go. We have it on by force, right? So it's compulsory now. So you might as well make use of your time.
I saw a meme that said, when your daily life is classified as quarantine. It was like the dude whose face is the same before and after.
What about people quarantined in an apartment? I mean, well, the thing is that you can still take a walk. What are we talking about, right? This is not the dead of winter.
It's not like there's no oxygen outside.
Yeah, you can still take a walk. So I mean, people. So Maureen, let me change the subject a little bit, if I may. That I'm hearing two opposite messages from people, right? And I don't know who to believe.
Don't listen to the other guys.
Just listen to us.
I'm hearing from physicians on both sides that this is it. This is the big one, the biggest calamity of our generation. That's number one. I'm hearing from others who are laughing. They're laughing, and they're saying,
who are the others?
Physicians, ER physicians and stuff, who are saying that this only affects people who would have already died from the flu if they got it, immunocompromised, blah, blah, blah. If children are basically not dying from this. If you're under 40, you're good to go unless you have some major. So I got to be honest, I don't know who to believe. That's why I haven't commented on anything about the severity of the crisis. And I mean, so my question to Maureen is, what is giving you this certainty or the zeal to believe that this is the big one?
All right. So a few things. I have to give like 99% of the credit to Saad. So he told me about this, he got me.
I had to convert Moeen to this line of thinking.
Okay.
Like 2 months ago.
I was I'm calling them flu bros, right? Who are still calling this thing the flu. I was a flu bro back in January. But I was very quickly converted by Saad. So there's a few things that I want to talk about here.
All right.
So here, I pulled up a tweet from the World Health Organization. They tweet the World Health Organization.
That was a joke.
The WHO. So I pulled up a tweet from the WHO. They said on January 14th, preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus. This is the WHO, okay? So a couple of things. I think even Saad and I that were on random Discords and Reddit threads and on these accounts, we knew that there was already confirmed human-to-human transmission. We knew a lot of things that a lot of people just weren't reading up on. And it's not that, the people who are keeping up with this are any smarter than these doctors or anything like that. I would say it's akin to, Nazmul knowing way too much Aqidah and philosophy more than some scholars, right? It's just he has a lot of time on his hands. And I think the truth of the matter is yes, there are virologists, there's epidemiologists, there's scientists, but that doesn't mean that they're keeping up with this thing and following the news. They're not making sure that the evidence and information they're getting is accurate. Take the WHO. If the WHO is telling people that there's no human-to-human transmission back in January 14th, then obviously people are going to be like, oh, maybe there's not. Like, I'm not smarter than the WHO. It's an appeal to authority, right? We constantly just say, oh, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a scholar. Like, how would I know, right? But I think it's extremely important for people to do their own research as well, because people lie. People have other agendas. I mean, this guy running the WHO, Dr. Tedros, he I mean, Saad can comment on it, but he was charged for, other things like 10 years.
Yeah, he was covering up cholera outbreaks in his home country.
Yeah. So how can I trust this source of information? Right. And we know, like, even in the Islamic tradition, when you have what is mutawatir hadith, right? Which is you have so many different reports and so many different claims saying the same thing that it can't possibly be wrong. You're telling me that, so many reports came from China that they're hiding the numbers, they're lying about the numbers, and we're here saying, oh, don't worry, China's numbers are perfectly accurate. We can believe this. How can I believe that? It just doesn't make any sense. And so here's a few facts I'm going to lay out. And I'm not a virologist. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a random guy. But I don't think it takes anything more than common sense to know some of these things. One, it's definitely not the flu because of a few things: mortality rate and the way that it spreads. The flu is not spread airborne, right? You have to touch a surface that somebody sneezed on or coughed on. The flu doesn't do that. Another thing is the flu doesn't spread asymptomatically, meaning I could have COVID. I could, have COVID right now and have no idea that I have it. And I could go to someone's house and spread it, and then that person will get sick. The flu absolutely doesn't do that. In addition, the flu doesn't do other things, such as there were reports that even people who were in the same apartment building, through the ventilation, someone in the other apartment was getting sick. I mean, this report is not out there.
That means it's airborne.
Yeah, it's airborne. And then a few other things is there was a mention of cytokine storms, right? Where people who were young, because they were young and had healthy immune systems, it's almost similar to like a histamine attack, right? What do you call that?
What?
Like allergies?
Yeah, like what is that called?
An immune response?
Yeah, an immune response, right? In which, your body, that's what histamines are.
It kicks into overdrive.
Yeah, antihistamines, that's what it is, right? So what happens is these cytokine storms, they kick into overdrive for only young people and people with like good immunity. And these guys end up collapsing and dying on the spot.
Yeah.
And this was reported in Iran and Italy. It happened in China. But this is nowhere in the news. It's nowhere anywhere, right? It'll get there. I mean, in 2 weeks, we'll find out, and then people will freak out. The young people who are getting this and then recovering it, they have lung damage. There was reports about
kidney, heart tissue,
yep,
reproductive damage.
And this is all for young people, right? Anybody below the age of 40. Now, that's literally only the health problems, right? Like actual health and bodily problems. Let's now take into consideration the healthcare impacts and the societal impacts of what this could do. If you have a hospital that has X number of ICU beds, in the US, there's approximately 110,000 ICU beds. Now, a regular hospital bed isn't the same as an ICU bed, right? It requires special care. There's different equipment. All of those things. There's about 110,000 of them. Now, they're saying that approximately 20% of people that contract this disease will be in a situation in which they'll need an ICU bed. Now, that number might be a little bit lower. If you're looking at Italy's numbers, it's wavering around like 10 to 15% need an ICU bed. That 110,000, isn't just for COVID, right? People are using those ICU beds now. So they're probably around 50 to 60% capacity already. Some people claim that they're already full, right? There's not very much capacity at all. So you use up those ICU beds. Let's say you double the capacity overnight, which is not going to happen, but you double the capacity overnight, you have 200,000 ICU beds. That's nothing, right? If you have 1 million people getting sick or 500,000 people getting sick, then you're going to run out of those ICU beds very, very, very quickly. In addition, as you shut down the economy, you shut down businesses, you shut down all these other things, you're going to impact all of these other areas, right? And people, let's say you had to have a selective surgery. A lot of hospitals are already stopping selective surgery. So if you wanted to get a surgery, you're not able to get it because there's COVID patients taking the bed that you need. And this is only the start.
Well, those are secondary consequences.
Right. And then, so now we're just talking about secondary, and then I can keep going on and on and on, but just how far I've gotten in the conversation already, it's very clear this is not the flu, right? Even take something, I mean, this is huge. Umrah getting canceled. How much of an impact does it have on the economy of Saudi Arabia overall? Enormous, right? All of the Hajj companies and the Umrah companies all across the world are getting impacted.
How about potential Hajj cancellations?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Absolutely.
there, right? And looking at the timeline of this thing, right? Hajj is what, 3-4 months? It's very likely that Hajj will change. Whether it's suspended or not, I don't know. But maybe they might limit it to only certain countries. Maybe there's a much longer process. But it's going to be impacted. I think it's pretty clear at this point.
All right, question for you. Have you studied and looked into the effects of the plagues of past centuries? Because there have been plagues in each of the past centuries, even if not like plague, but infectious diseases that spread around that there was no cure for, that spread around really quickly, such as the Spanish flu, such as cholera, such as, what was the before that? I can't remember. But one of the interesting, the actual Black Plague was way before that.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that someone could do a study of is that these sicknesses cause such a disruption. And then you could note that there tends to be a major war in the decade following that plague, almost like textbook. It's amazing, actually, if you align them up. And it'll be really interesting to see if the sickness, or the plague that went around, altered the way, the power structures of the world.
Yeah.
That ended up in a domino effect.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
These things tend to leave lasting impressions on the world that kind of shift its trajectory a little bit.
Yeah.
So that usually means like social upheaval, political upheaval, which are a lot of the conditions for why warfare starts in the first place. So, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't studied it in depth, right? I mean, just over the past few months, we've been looking at this stuff. However, I think the world is very, very different than what it used to be. I think this is a fact. I mean, if I could just speak about my village in India, because I've been there and I know how it works. 50 years ago, you could have just put somebody at the front gate, closed off the village, and it was self-sufficient. You had farms and everything, and nobody was coming in and nobody was going out, and you could spend decades in there and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
Right. So that type of world almost doesn't exist except for in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like in the middle of Jordan somewhere you could do that. But I mean, when it comes to Western nations, that doesn't exist. We have just-in-time supply chains, right? So we don't even have.
All right, so I'm back.
All right, yeah.
All right.
Can I bring up a topic here? That's pretty interesting. All right, let's go back into the history here. All right. Corona so far, as of March 18th, has the death toll is around, let's say, 9,000 as an estimate. Is that is that a number that you?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Sounds right. All right. The last plague that was, we've had two bad things that went on. Everything good?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Spanish flu, 1920, exactly 100 years ago. The Spanish flu was worldwide. Okay. And that killed 100 million people. Okay. 100 million people died, estimate. Okay. We go back 18, let's see, when in believe it or not, in the 19th century, there wasn't maybe the record keeping wasn't as good, but there were 1 million people in 1890 worldwide flu pandemic, influenza, and then 1 million people in cholera died in Russia from cholera. Okay, but nothing massive worldwide in the 19th century. Let's go back to the 18th century. 18th century, again, record keeping, we don't know what's going on in terms of that. But Persia, they had a Persian plague. 2 million people died of that. Okay, moving back even further, 30 to 90% of the population of England died, of southern England, all right, died in the New England epidemic. Southern New England died of an epidemic. Okay, we don't know what the population of that was in the first place. These are Native Americans. Okay. So the Spanish flu so far, maybe because of record keeping, has the lead in deaths. All right, until now you finally go to Plague of Justinian. That's the Black Plague. And that's the massive one. 40% of the population of the Mediterranean countries and Europe. So that's unknown how many, 25 to 50 million people. Okay. So the Spanish flu ranks as number 2. Okay. And we said those other plagues, 1 million from the cholera pandemic, 1 million from the influenza in 1890. And then 100 million, again, we said Spanish flu, 1 million from the Hong Kong flu, which is influenza A, all right, H3N2. And then 32 million from AIDS, okay, worldwide, which they say commenced in the Congo Basin, or they're blaming it on the Congo. Easy out for people who can't defend themselves. But, looking at that in comparison, I mean, Corona's got to do a lot, to be listed with those giants. Corona still has quite a way to go. I mean,
here's where I think that type of thinking is flawed. I see a lot of people. But
that's just straight up statistics. I mean, Corona, it's been what? All right, if it lasts 1 year, at this rate, what are the numbers going to be?
Even if the numbers are 10, right? 10 people died. Let me tell you why this is a big deal. One is because I think I see a lot of people just comparing numbers and saying, like right now, look, I'll be frank, people dying from hunger is going to be more than the people dying from Corona.
Yeah, but you can't catch hunger if someone sneezes on you. That's right. Why those analogies are not,
Also,
they're more dramatic than anything else.
But that's also, go ahead, son.
Also, I mean, the only thing I was going to say is that this is right. Those previous pandemics and illnesses have probably at this point in time have probably killed way more people statistically. But a lot of like the records keeping and the numbers was done after the fact. So for like the Spanish flu, which was the most recent one, they didn't come to that estimate of like 100 million people dying until very recently. Like it's in modern times that they were able to accurately estimate that, hey, this probably killed 100 million people. So a lot of these statistics are kind of hindsight statistics. So even with Corona, right, we're at the beginning of like, if you picture the entire pandemic as like this parabolic kind of normal curve that goes up and then tapers off, we're like at the very beginning of that hump, right, before it's coming. And so we're not going to know how much damage it does until it's done, basically.
Wait, so you don't think that we're near the hump?
Oh, no way. No, actually, it's not even me. It's if you ask most most of the researchers right now, they'll tell you that we're not even at the beginning of the hump.
See, I mean, you're very confident in that, but it just, I'm trying to figure out, how do you present this as an argument? I mean, 2009,
Right.
worldwide.
Can you tell me why the opposite is true?
What's the opposite?
That we're in the peak of this.
That this
and it's
is
going
almost
down?
over.
No, I can't say that. I can't argue it either way.
Yeah.
So
But what I'm saying is that as a scoreboard, if I'm looking, because ultimately, what's the big deal? Death is the big deal, right? So that's the number what I'm going to care about, right?
Yeah.
The worldwide H1N1 flu pandemic, that hit about 250,000 people died, and some people estimate that it's up to 500,000 people died from H1N1, right?
Right.
And I mean, people don't even know about it, right? I mean, if you ask it, what's H1N1, they'll think it's like a type of visa, right?
Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Alex.
500,000 people died in that flu, and it's a regular flu, the good old flu, right, of 2009, and life moved on. And so, if you want to, you can possibly make an argument of what in the world is a big deal, right? And I'm not saying that that's my argument, but you could definitely make it when you look at the scoreboard. The scoreboard is like, this is not a big deal.
So a lot of people are obviously making that argument, but I think it's almost similar to saying, like, let's say World War II had just started. We're in like the first 2 months of World War II, right? And somebody came up to you and said, well, what's the big deal with World War II business? I mean, World War I killed more people, right, up until that point in time.
Correct.
But World War II wasn't over yet, right? So, and they would later find that the deaths would eclipse World War I by like a huge margin.
Huge margin.
So I think,
can I answer that? Well, one of the things is that, at least in our part of the world, in the Northeast, there are precautions being taken that would I would assume would really temper the growth and the spread of the virus. I
think that's a natural assumption that most people are making. But like, I know me and Moeen have been like looking at this for like 2 months, and like even the extreme kind of quarantine measures that, I mean, China's like a totalitarian state. Like, they could do whatever they want. They could lock people in their homes. They could, stuff people in jail cells. I don't think we would ever see that kind of response in America. Although Alex might be like, we might.
Of course we will.
Give the government a chance to prove themselves just as bad as China. But I think that even if we embarked on that level of an extreme quarantine, this wave is still kind of coming. And even the data out of China, like out of Wuhan, like they went on an extreme like quarantine, and they were still hit pretty hard. Like their hospitals were overwhelmed. So I think it remains to be seen. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like speculative. So obviously it's like, anything could happen, but it almost seems like being precautious, like there's no downside to being precautious, right? Like
there is wrong huge outbreak downside. You know how many cash businesses are just going belly up by next week? Or by the week after that? And then when that happens, do you know where theft and robbery is going to go up too? Right.
Let's do the raise hand thing. But Alex, I think you were going to say something.
No, I agree with Dr. Shadi, actually, and specifically, that's why I think it is a big deal, because I think that whatever precautions we're taking, whatever we're doing to try to stem the spread of this, whether it's called for or not, it's going to happen. Right. So it doesn't matter that this maybe is just like another flu. Suppose it is, right? It's just another type of flu. First, there's real impacts to that because the flu also exists. It's not like this year's seasonal flu is really bad. Right. It's more like we have the seasonal flu plus this, and every year we're going to have this now because it's a new pathogen that's a new virus that's come into the population. It's not going to go away, just like the flu doesn't go away, just like the common cold doesn't go away. That's A. So the impact on the healthcare system is permanent. So it's double the amount of, even if it's just the flu, it's double the amount of people that are going to be in hospital, double the amount of people that are going to die, double the amount of people that are going to need treatment, double the amount of loss of productivity. if it's just regular flu, same kind of impact. Because of that, we're now taking precautions to avoid the kind of stuff that we're seeing in Italy and Iran, and that is destroying the global economy. Right? We're interconnected in a way that we weren't even in 2009. And where this hit first is the supply chain to the majority of the world in a time where our consumables, we're a consumer society that consumes disposable everything. I mean, like, look up Google fast fashion, right? People don't even wear stuff for 6 months anymore. You buy a shirt for this season, by next season it's out. You'll never wear it next year. That gets tossed into the garbage, or it gets sent to a country where they don't even want it either. And then it gets into a landfill. And that just keeps happening. That's over. Also, we rely on China and for like 80% or 85% of our antibiotics. And China and India combined are like 95% of our pharmaceutical production. That's got to go.
For generics,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, so this kind of situation is going to completely alter, not permanently, not just the way we interact with one another, social distancing, less handshaking, more hygiene. It's also going to impact the way our economy works. The stock market is plummeting. We're cutting interest rates to zero. A Republican president is proposing a UBI. This is wild. This is a completely wild situation. Now, whether it's an overreaction or not is irrelevant, because that reaction is going to happen, whether it's an underreaction, like Moeen might think, or an overreaction, like some people think, is irrelevant. It's happening.
Yeah.
So this is actually catastrophic, no matter how bad the disease actually turns out to be.
Yeah. So the summary is that there has to be a reaction, right?
Yeah.
Just the fact, the way they're talking about it, and and they talk about it once they start using the word outbreak and things like that.
War. They're using war terminology now.
Actually, the president today, Trump called himself a wartime president.
Yeah, wartime. Cuomo has been saying, "Hey, we're enacting like a war against." Like, they're treating it like this is like all units mobilized type of thing.
And I think I want to comment a couple of things. One is, I don't think this is an underreaction. Here's my thing. I think we had a severe underreaction a month and a half ago. At this point, I think it's all moot, right? We passed the point where we could have contained this and stopped this. I think, like Alex said, now there's going to be ramifications of this, right? And a few things that I want to comment on about, like, the death rate. Now, like I said, even if it's 10 or if it's 10 million, I think it does make a difference, and it is a big deal, because over the last 100 years, right, in Western nations, at least, especially in America, we have never faced anything that has sort of changed our lifestyle after the Great Depression, for example. Not at a drastic way, the way that this is all of a sudden. And I think the last 20 years, we have lived in a period of extreme indulgence. And I think if you told people tomorrow that their Amazon Prime deliveries are no longer coming,
that's a big problem.
The world has collapsed for them.
That's worse than Corona.
That's a collapse.
That is going to be.
Yeah.
That is worse than Corona.
It's a wrap.
You tell me that, and that's going to be a bigger deal than Corona. Like,
if you told me tomorrow the internet will no longer exist, nobody's going to die. The internet's just not around anymore.
Then half the population's dying real quick.
Yeah. Right.
So this is where, you have to realize that our world today is created in such an interconnected fashion.
Fragile.
It's so fragile. It's even if I told you, hey, listen, this virus is going to kill nobody. It's just going to take out the internet. You'll be like, we need to stop this thing as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
Because there's too many impacts of what this thing could actually do. All we did was take out China. Not even, right? China, just the supply chain stopped. What happened? All of a sudden, now we can't even get anything in hospitals, right? Now, and now the supply chain problems haven't started yet. They're going to start in March. We still had enough stock on hand to be able to run us through March. Now, just as this thing starts to ramp up, some hospitals are claiming they don't have masks. Like it's not even something crazy like a ventilator. They don't have masks. Some hospital was sewing cloths. They bought like sewing machines and they're sewing cloths in the hospital to put on the N95 mask so they could use them multiple times throughout the day, which is already dangerous, right? So we're talking about we're not talking like high level dosages of medicine. What are people going to do when they run out of their Xanax? Like I laugh, but this is why it's a big deal. It's not if I told you that I kicked you back 50 years into the past, but nobody died, then that's a huge deal, right? Like, hey, like in when the Spanish flu happened in 1918, there was no internet. There weren't there were supply chains, obviously, but they weren't connected in the way they are today, right? And so even things like at the hospital, yeah, we have great healthcare and medicine. We don't have people don't have money to pay the hospital bills. Did you know ambulance companies in the US are privatized? So the moment these guys start getting sick, they're going to stop coming.
That's true. Well,
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what was the bad part? No, I'm just playing. No, but in all honesty, right? Like I think the fact that we're calling it a reaction at all is kind of already proof of what's going on, right? Like everything that we do is going to be a reaction, and it's just going to try to lessen the impact, but it's not going to be able to avoid it, right? It is a reaction. It's not like anybody prepared for this. They're reacting to it. So it's just going to be like you're a fire started and you've got a bucket of water and you start like pouring it on the fire to try to put it out.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I have a question. If all right, SARS is pretty bad, right? You know about SARS, right?
We've already surpassed the death toll for SARS, by the way.
Okay, now listen to this. SARS is a big scary thing, right?
This is the sequel to SARS.
This is, by the way, this is SARS too. This is SARS. The actual name is SARS-CoV-2.
Yep.
So severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, is 2002. Right. Okay, 2000, 2004. And it hit China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Okay, that death toll never passed 600.
Right.
Max, maybe like an estimate will tell you 800. Now, I have a problem with calling that an outbreak. Right? In China, 800 people die of old age every day. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is where I'm getting to is the language being used here and the fear put forth by the media over 800 people in 2 years, not in 1 year, in 2 years. Okay. So let's say in a hypothetical situation, the death toll of Corona never passes, worldwide death toll never passes 15,000.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 15,000 people just die. Don't 15,000 people die worldwide every day?
If let's say you're in a building and the shooter comes into a building, right? You're not going to sit there and say, hey, more people in this building die from diabetes every year. We shouldn't worry about this shooter. That's ridiculous.
No, but a shooter is something that we see and know and are obliged to act upon. But you wouldn't shut down the city because there's a shooter. Right?
Yeah, you would. You would shut down of course you would. You would shut down the building, wouldn't you?
The building, maybe, but not the city. But look at this. In this issue of see, your example was so crazy. That's why. your example was so crazy.
Saying. I see what Doc is saying.
What I'm saying is there's going to be the next pandemic that comes around. We're going to say, oh, no, we're not going to do it like those idiots from 2020 who shut the whole world down for a thing that killed 15,000 people over 6 months.
Okay, what's the
I think the difference, Doc, is that obviously nobody knows how this is going to progress and how severe it could get, but they do have methodologies to kind of project how fast things spread, the mortality rate of how many people that are infected end up dying. And like their projections, if left unmitigated, are like this could be really bad, right? Like this could take out a huge chunk of the population, a big enough chunk of the population to cause significant problems.
Yeah,
especially where
things are going to have to react. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I think they're trying to take things from horrible to awful, right? like like I think that's really what they're trying to do at this point with all these measures. They're like, we know it's going to be bad, but how can we make it less bad than it might be? And these sacrifices of like the economy and like these things are going to happen no matter what, so we might as well just do it now, because those things are going to be an eventuality,
Yeah.
even if we don't shut things down, right?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Being devil's advocate and saying,
No,
why not this, why not that?
I think a lot of people have those kind of concerns, or like those objections to like a lot of what the media is saying, but
But so here's the thing, right? If the deaths are limited to, say, 15,000, I don't think that any reasonable person will look back and go, oh, we definitely overreacted and we did too much. Because if they're limited to 15,000, it's because people took extreme measures.
And that's exactly why it's very hard to ever, win in a defensive situation. Like security guards, how do security guards justify themselves, right? Their presence made criminals move away, right?
Yes, deterrence.
Right. It's deterrence. Yep. So how does anything in a deterrence situation ever justify itself? Like,
because somebody could be like, well, nobody came to your building so why didn't you use a security guard? Well, maybe nobody came to the building because there was a security guard, right? Yeah. So it's
let's talk about something else too. And this is something that's pretty alarming. If this lasts more than three weeks, and you guys are very confident that it's going to last more than 3 months, right? It's these lockdowns, then crime rates should go up as soon as people start losing jobs. And that $1,000 from the government's not going to really do much for people, right?
You do.
Yeah, so crime rate is definitely going up. So a lot of police agencies, including some here in New Jersey, I have confirmation on that. I don't even know if this is responsible for saying, but it's some. It's been published in other states. Police agencies are not making arrests on non-reported crimes. So what a lot of police agencies do as part of their work is so-called proactive police work, which is they're engaging in stops, they're engaging the public, they're investigating suspicious-looking people or activities or whatever, right? Whatever the justification for it is. That's out. Now they're only responding to calls of reports of crime. And in California, they're not even arresting and jailing people unless it's very serious or violent crimes. What they're doing is they're arresting them, they're giving them a court date, and they're sending them back out on the street. So, and that's going for anything that's nonviolent and anything that's not deemed really serious. So like selling drugs, burglaries, people breaking into homes, any of those kind of crimes, they're just going to hit you with a court date, process you, fingerprint you, and send you right back on the street. They're not putting you in the jails. The LA County Sheriff did an early release on a bunch of people that were coming close to the end of their sentence. Just let them out. And as this becomes more and more known that police are not doing car stops for any reason except like an imminent danger to the public. So they see somebody driving down the street speeding, expired license, lights out, whatever, right? Anything that normally would get you stopped, and then they start sniffing around and asking you questions, none of that's going to happen. They're only stopping cars if they look like they're drunk, weaving in and out, or if they're like riding on the sidewalk about to hit somebody. Other than that, they're not engaging in car stops anymore. They're also charging less crimes. So I'll give you an example. Where I work, normally we get anywhere from half a dozen to 30 people lodged in the jail every day on a 24-hour basis. In the last 2 days, we've had 3.
Wow.
2 days together.
Wow.
Nobody's getting arrested. Nobody's getting charged. And the 3 that we had were domestic violence cases. So somebody got beat up and called the cops, and the cops came. 2 of them were women, by the way.
And I think
their husbands.
I think, see, that's why I don't treat this virus as a sort of black box incident with only deaths. Everything that comes with it is the virus. If somebody gets put in quarantine and they commit suicide, that's the virus, right? Yeah. It's not a virus. It's not directly from the virus, but it's a secondary death because of the virus, right? And I think that's extremely important. And I think Saad just posted he has to pray Asr. I think we should wrap up soon after pray Asr as well.
Don't you guys have like 10 more hours for that? Kidding.
I'll tell you something else regarding that. So we got notice that immigration is not transporting anyone to court. Federal prisons are not transporting anyone to courts. State prisons are not transporting anybody to the county. It's the entire criminal justice system is basically on a big pause,
Yeah.
and so they're not gonna do. Crime is absolutely 100% going to go up,
Yep.
and the police are going to be loath to come to you calling that somebody's outside your house suspicious.
Yep.
They're going to go, well, are they breaking in or not? And
Question.
by the time they actually broke in, yeah. Go ahead.
Question. Gun sales. How are they doing?
They're through the roof right now.
You can't buy anything. You can't find anything.
You can't. The permitting process for New Jersey is all backed up.
I got mine. I got mine.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Now I
That's
need
good.
to actually make use of it
That's,
Yeah.
I mean,
and make a purchase. I need to make a purchase.
Oh, so that's the thing. If you got your ID, right?
Yeah.
Even if you purchase a gun, right, at the dealer, they're gonna do a transfer and they're gonna do a criminal background check. That process is hamstrung as well now.
Wait, what was the point of getting the license?
You have to go. Well, I mean,
get another background
welcome
check.
to New Jersey.
Yeah, it's called NICS. It's the National Instant Check System.
But it takes
Instant
12
is a
hours.
euphemism at this point.
Listen, then, what's your opinion then about just getting? I don't even know if we're supposed to talk about this on the podcast, but you get ordering a fake gun from China. Think about it for
80%
self-defense.
lowers.
for self-defense, just to have it visible, right?
In New
Visible.
Jersey, you can't get that delivered to New Jersey.
Yeah, you can.
Why
New
not?
Jersey bans any guns, even the
80%,
toy guns that look like they're real.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
From Amazon?
Yeah,
you can get it-
Amazon says
sorry,
you can't
sorry.
ship to New Jersey.
Sorry, not Amazon.
really?
Not Amazon. Not Amazon. What's the other dude? Jack Ma
AliExpress.
from Alibaba. Hey, listen, tuck it into a teddy bear.
Nothing
right?
is coming from
Because-
China.
Amazon. I know on Amazon. So in New Jersey, you can't buy like an airsoft gun, which
Yeah.
shoots like a little rubber thing, like for little kids use it to play.
Yeah.
You can't buy that without a firearms ID in New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Alibaba.
Allah.
These guys.
Alex,
hey, listen.
Alibaba is down for the count.
Listen. When you, they're probably down for the count. But when you deal with Alibaba, like 4 weeks after you make your purchase, you're gonna get a random WhatsApp message, right?
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing.
WeChat. Yep.
And then there's
Hello,
a guy,
friend.
Exactly. And so you've done this before. And the
I
guy,
never
goes,
bought from them.
yeah, and there's going to be a guy saying, "Hey, I'm standing right here with your package in the China airport. There's been some delays, but it'll get to you." You forget and you forget about it. 5 months later, it appears in the mail, right? It's
And
like
then
a gift.
you forget you wanted it. You're like, I don't even want this anymore.
Well, but back to this issue, and we got to wrap up right now. But back to this issue of of crime going up means self-defense has to go up, and even if you don't use guns, I was talking to Waqar, and I said, you guys in Birmingham, you guys got it easy. You guys got a gang. You already have a mentality over there, and you guys should be walking up and down the streets with your cricket bats, and it'll show that you can't mess with this street, right? You can't mess with this street, because if we're talking about what you're saying, 3 and 6 months, by the end of by the 4th and 5th, 6th month, there's going to be home robberies in suburban areas. There's no doubt about it, right? So you got to make a presence for yourself. Your presence has to be known. And I'm telling you, this is where the suburban mentality is a disaster. They're such wimps and so weak. Okay, they're afraid of guns. That's the first thing. They're afraid of any militaristic image. But that's what's going to keep you safe. That you have people walking up doing community whatever, as if it looks like this is a gang of guys that are protecting this neighborhood. Am I talking craziness, right?
No,
because if
not
you
at all.
guys,
Not at all.
yeah, when you guys were talking, the way you guys are talking, this is the logical flow of the conversation. Is that
By
we're
the
not going
way,
to be worried about Corona. We're going to worry about robberies.
in New Jersey, apparently, and this is hearsay, so I don't know, but apparently at a bunch of the gun stores, there were reports of like liberals showing up trying to buy
guns,
and then getting frustrated that you had to go through this whole process of getting an ID and doing all that stuff. They were like, why? They wanted to get guns to defend themselves, and they were like, why is this whole process in place? Like, why can't we just get it today? I just found that really funny.
I actually know a lot of a few liberals who, after Trump got elected, were like, "Oh, I have to go get a gun now."
Yeah.
And I was like, this is literally what you criticize people for doing, for wanting to defend themselves. And you're not even being realistic. No
Yeah.
MAGA people are coming to kill you.
Yeah,
Allah
so that's basically where we're going, and it's going to be axes.
So we went from
Bats.
being
I
positive.
like how Moeen was like, I don't want to do all doom and gloom.
we went from being
Malicious.
positive to now we're talking about forming our own militia.
Listen, I put up a wall in front of you and Sad. Yes or no? I put up a wall. I said this is a big overreaction. Devil's advocate. You guys broke down the wall. Now the water's going the opposite way now. Now we're on month 5. We're on, having community watch groups in boots, right?
But
I'll tell you something else. What the other thing the other way that this could turn out, which is very possible, is we end up a failed economy because the government, in order to prevent, rampant unemployment, homelessness, etc., just starts literally printing money and throwing it at the problem.
Yep.
And a year from now, we find ourselves with a collapsed economy because
Alex,
you can't do that.
And you definitely know what went down in Argentina in 2001, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how is that? That's a very plausible scenario.
It is. No, it really is. Because you literally have the Republican Party now going full. We have to do what FDR did during the Great Depression. We easily could find ourselves in a situation where our entire economy could completely collapse.
I posted that one document that I saw in. It was a city in Illinois. It was a court document around emergency powers that a mayor of Champaign, Illinois posted. And some of the things in that were very unconstitutional sounding.
Now, and the thing is, you have people, I think a large number of people, especially younger people, who would like nothing better than for the government to just go, we're going to give you money and we're going to wipe out all your debt and we're going to provide fake jobs, keep busy jobs so we can justify paying you money. And I mean, like Nas, who's not on the podcast today, and we tease him about it, but Nas really hopes, and I hope I'm not misquoting him, but he really thinks that the federal government has to step in to make things better for people. And that does not ever work. It only makes things much, much worse.
You need tribes. If you want social...
You went straight militia.
Social security, the best social security is the tribal system, right or wrong.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
The corporations are not. They've replaced nations, replaced tribes. Corporations replaced nations, and corporations are worse at taking care of their employees than nations have been, than taking care of their citizens. Right. So, but the last thing I want to say is, do you guys remember some long time ago? One of my trajections of possibilities is that Trump gets in. And then some destabilizing factor occurs somewhere towards the end of his term, right? And he cancels elections and literally can cancel democracy too.
If the so-called flattening of the curve doesn't happen by the fall, the elections will not happen.
There's no elections, yeah. There's no.
Ohio didn't hold a primary yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys do remember we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what I find interesting is. And I'm going to go in a slightly different direction, is a lot of these things that are happening in cancellations, and you mentioned it in your community update yesterday, is what happens when you stop Jumas and Umrahs and you stop all of these spiritual protections that are on the earth, right? What happens? I mean, when you stop it all of a sudden, right?
Bro,
this causes
that's a whole nother podcast.
That's how the Dajjal appears, in my opinion.
That's a whole nother podcast. When you have days and days of no dua for the ummah going up from the Haramain Sharifain, and how many masajid for Jumu'ah, and that's our protection, and that was our protection, and it wasn't even enough. The dua, right? Our dua collectively as an ummah, because we know that nothing stops the qada except dua. The qada being the trials raining down upon us. And the trials were still raining through all that dua, right? Now remove all that, and what is going to be willed for us in the future? Subhanallah. At that point, man, you better be making a lot of personal dua to compensate that.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to end it on a doom and gloom thing. So I'll say two things. One, one of the good, whatever the reality of how deadly this disease is, whatever, right? One of the things that this is a reminder that as much as we were enjoying our safety and security while Muslims in places like Myanmar and in China and in other places of the world were getting slaughtered and raped and thrown into prison camps, and all because of their religion, our comforts are only blessings from Allah, and they can be taken away at any moment. And even if we lose all of this, we still won't be suffering as badly as they continue to be. And now we don't even think about them because we're too worried that we're going to get sick and die, or that our lifestyle is going to change.
Yeah.
So it's just a reminder. The last thing I'll say is just a reminder of the hadith of the Prophet, that the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, though there's good in both.
Mm-hmm.
And so be avid for that which benefits, be of good cheer, rely on Allah, and don't think yourself incapable.
Mm-hmm.
There's and if something happens to you, don't say, oh, I should have done such and such, because that's only shaitan playing with you.
Yeah. And I think I'm gonna end it here as well. One, I'm not of the, don't panic, don't worry, it's gonna be fine crowd. I truly believe that when you get on a plane, and I know I said that in the beginning of the podcast, but here if we're gonna go doom and gloom, then I'm gonna go out doom and gloom. But here's what I'd like to say about it: when you get on a plane, right, and you go through turbulence, you don't want the pilot to get on and say, "Don't panic, guys." You want him to get on and say, "Hey, listen, we're gonna go through a little bit of turbulence. This is gonna be bumpy. I'm gonna try to take it up, to higher altitude, whatever it might be, and I want you to hang in tight." And when it does go up, you're finally like, oh, when you start hitting the turbulence, you say, oh, okay, this is what the pilot told us. We were expecting this, and it's going to be rough, but we'll get through it. And I think it holds true here as well. I don't like giving people this nice message of it's going to be fine, nothing is going to happen, you're still going to continue getting your Prime deliveries, and you're going to just continue binge watching Netflix. I'm sorry, that is not going to happen. And it might for a little while, but it's going to go away based on the trajectory that we're on. And I think if it does, khair, I mean, this is from Allah. Everything is from Allah, right? Take it as the test that we have. I mean, other nations and other people have faced a lot worse, like Ilyas just mentioned, right? There's Muslims all across the world that were going through tragedies, and here we were sitting, eating our Cheetos and watching Netflix and watching documentaries on them. So it is, like you mentioned, Dr. Shadi, that Allah has given us any test that comes upon us is a mercy from Allah, right? It removes our sins. It removes the wrongs that we've done. And if we enter a new world, then we enter a new world. And if we don't, then khair, we don't.
And
right?
and also, that's not it's not all doom and gloom, right? So like, I know a lot of you'll hear a lot of people on the news and in like the financial world saying that like, hey, if the economy crashes, everything's going to be bad, or, it's going to be a lot of problems, unemployment, all this stuff. But I mean, there's always silver linings, right? Like if this is something that causes us to move away from an interest and, credit-based economy, then that's a good thing, right? Like that, everybody should be happy about that, right? So there's certain things that, there's still silver linings to all of this stuff.
Yeah. When you go through a difficulty, going through it by yourself is much more difficult than going through it with other people. Take Ramadan, right? Try fasting outside of Ramadan. It's way more difficult than doing it together with the community.
Very difficult.
And I think the same holds true here. Yeah, things might go bad. Let's say a lot of us lose our jobs, but it's not like I'm the only one losing my job. A lot of other people also are losing their jobs. And when everybody loses their jobs, then new economies will be created and new jobs will be created.
Yeah.
Right? We'll just sort of restructure into a new type of economy. And will lives be lost along the way? Lives are lost along the way anyway, right? I think we've talked about this on other podcasts where, when seatbelts came along, the number of car accident deaths really didn't go down. When parachutes came out, the number of people dying from, falling out of airplanes didn't really go down, I guess. And I found that crazy to think about even then. And the same holds true. Your fate and your life and death are written either way, right? We know this. So why continue, worrying about this. Whatever comes is going to come, and it'll be good, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
So I'll end it on that. You can.
All
end
right,
it
great. I mean, we had such a cozy and fuzzy podcast that everyone, whatever people listen to after this, is going to be uplifting, right?
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Right? So, get your bats, people, and start walking in the streets with your bats from now. Your cricket bats, baseball bats in America.
Sheikh, you're saying
Bats.
you're mispronouncing the G.
What is it?
You're mispronouncing the G as like a B.
Cats.
Gats. Gats. I wish, man. I was too late. I've always had a feeling I was going to be too late about this.
Hey,
Alhamdulillah.
It's all good, inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. All right, jazakallah khairan, guys.
All right.
Alhamdulillah. Hey, listen, we could do this like multiple times a week now. We don't have to. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
we could take calls too.
We could.
Good, yeah.
We
We
could
could
bring
take
in
calls.
guests.
We can
We
have
can
other
bring in-
people hop
You
on.
guys wanna get Waqar on to see what the England situation is like?
That would be awesome.
Let's get that
actually.
physicist on here.
What's he gonna tell us?
I'm just kidding.
I mean, no offense, but like,
I'm just kidding.
we you know who we should get? We should get Dr. Chak. He's
Oh,
an infectious
yes.
disease specialist.
No way. Didn't know this. Okay, good. So let's do that. All right.
Let's do it.
Next Monday, maybe next week. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens.
We're all
I mean,
home.
We're all home.
and free.
All right.
I mean, this is actually healthy for me, so I don't even mind doing this. More.
Yeah.
Than
Good. Yeah.
Once a
We'll
week.
see how Sad's
We don't
doing.
even need to record it. I just talk on and talk.
Yeah.
Also,
But,
I think maybe we can talk Albana into coming on.
Yeah. Let's get Albenna. Albenna is going to be good with both the medical and the guns element. And by the way, whatchamacallit? I was going to say, people who can listen in on community updates as well. If you want another platform to listen in and type in your comments and questions. Today, Mufti Niaz is coming on a call for community updates. And again, if people want to keep studying, they could keep studying with ArcView, and that continues to keep going and even growing now that I only haven't done any because the laptop's been in use because of all this homeschooling business. But that's actually growing now more than ever now that we're all online. So
Sheikh,
Also,
community
I would buy
updates
a
come on
laptop.
after Maghrib.
7:30, inshallah, right after Maghrib.
All right.
Inshallah.
If you need a laptop,
they're really good.
If
Yeah,
you need a
alhamdulillah.
laptop or a computer, buy it now before the supply chain hits.
Yeah.
The issues hit, because that's
Buy
gonna be the first
everything,
to go.
anything you need, buy it now. And I don't mean toilet paper. I mean things you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah,
you
and
need.
totally. And I just went and I bought a second.
Isn't
you know
it-
these mini recorder?
Yeah.
The converters for the cameras. I bought second and
Yeah.
third versions of those in case they go
You
out.
just mentioned toilet paper, but isn't it fascinating now that everybody is talking about hygiene and like the importance of washing and like personal protective equipment to cover up? I was like, these guys just
This
need
is-
to stop, man.
This
They
is
just need to
Corona
stop.
Sharia, man. It's
I know.
Corona Sharia.
Corona's giving dawa out here.
No,
Yeah,
totally. And even before, without toilet paper, I was like, listen, you run out of toilet paper, no big deal. You call up your grandma in the other country. Hey, in the old world, hey, before toilet paper, how did you guys used to do it? Right? They didn't have toilet paper for a long time in these countries.
Yeah.
How did they do it? Right?
I just want to make a note, since this is the Safina podcast. I think the LGBT issue may have just resolved itself on its own.
Yeah, Pride Parade canceled. All the Pride Parades are canceled now.
Wow.
Well, they had one and people got infected, right?
Yeah.
With what?
With Corona.
Besides all their other stuff.
Yeah, besides all the others. Corona would be the least, right?
So
What
what
do you
you're saying
want?
they got cured,
No, he wanted Corona or he wanted an STD.
right?
This is true.
All
All
right,
right,
guys.
I think we could
Bismillah.
call it a wrap.
All right.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام